The Lucifer Effect, How Good People Turn into Monsters. The Stanford Simulation, Unmasking the Monster Within. The unsettling truth revealed by the Stanford Prison Experiment is that the capacity for cruelty resides even within ordinary individuals, capable of manifesting with shocking rapidity. Conducted in 1971 under the leadership of psychologist Philip Zimbardo, this landmark study demonstrated how readily psychologically stable college students could morph into either tyrannical guards or psychologically broken prisoners within less than a week. Designed to explore the impact of power dynamics and assigned roles in a simulated prison housed in a university basement, the experiment's rapid descent into abuse forced its premature termination after just 6 days. The findings sent tremors through psychology and society, compelling a stark confrontation with the idea that monstrous behavior isn't exclusive to inherently evil people, but can be summoned by situational forces, a phenomenon Zimbardo termed the Lucifer Effect. When circumstance dictates character, the situational imperative. One of the most profound insights from the Stanford experiment was the sheer velocity and intensity with which participants inhabited their randomly assigned roles. These young men, carefully screened for psychological stability, underwent dramatic behavioral shifts. The guards, equipped with uniforms, mirrored sunglasses to obscure eye contact, a tool of anonymity, and symbolic batons, quickly escalated their assertion of authority into aggressive and dehumanizing tactics. The prisoners, stripped of personal identity through numbered uniforms and degrading procedures, rapidly succumbed to stress, passivity, and emotional distress. This transformation underscores the potent influence of situational context, demonstrating its power to override ingrained personal ethics and values. The meticulously constructed environment, designed to mimic the power imbalances of incarceration, was not merely a backdrop but an active agent shaping behavior. It suggested that specific situations can activate latent behavioral potentials, challenging the notion of fixed moral character and highlighting our collective vulnerability to environmental pressures, particularly those involving authority and anonymity. The erosion of empathy, dehumanization as a weapon. Central to the guards' escalating cruelty was the psychological process of dehumanization, the act of stripping individuals of their human qualities, reducing them conceptually to objects or lesser beings. This mechanism allows perpetrators to create emotional distance, neutralizing empathy and enabling acts of cruelty by reframing them as necessary or justified responses to something less than human. In the Stanford experiment, tactics included referring to prisoners by numbers, enforcing humiliating dress codes, and imposing arbitrary, degrading tasks. This systematic erosion of individuality and dignity created a psychological gulf between the groups, making it easier for guards to inflict suffering without significant empathetic resistance. Dehumanization is an insidious force, often operating subtly through language, derogatory terms, generalizations, and attitudes. Once established, it paves the way for discrimination, indifference, and contempt by short-circuiting our natural compassion. The Stanford study serves as a stark microcosm of historical atrocities, from genocide to systemic oppression, where dehumanization provided the psychological bedrock for unthinkable cruelty. Recognizing and actively challenging its manifestations remains crucial. The unseen current: conformity and the diffusion of responsibility. The Stanford Prison Experiment also vividly illustrated the powerful sway of conformity, the tendency for individuals to align their actions and beliefs with perceived group norms, sometimes in direct conflict with their own principles. The guards, initially uncertain, rapidly converged on a shared understanding of aggressive dominance as the expected behavior within their group. This emergent norm created strong pressure against deviation. Furthermore, the experiment highlighted the diffusion of responsibility, where individuals feel diminished personal accountability for their actions when acting as part of a group or under perceived authority. Guards could rationalize their behavior as merely doing their job or adhering to the experiment's requirements, effectively outsourcing moral judgment to the situation or the collective. This abdication allows harmful actions to persist. Conformity is a pervasive social force, shaping choices unconsciously. The desire to belong can override independent judgment. Stanford warns against the perils of uncritical conformity, stressing the importance of independent thought, moral courage, and the willingness to dissent even when facing social pressure. The Digital Prison, Echoes of Stanford Online. The dynamics observed within the Stanford basement find disturbing parallels in the modern digital landscape. The relative anonymity, vast reach, and rapid feedback loops of social media platforms create fertile ground for the Lucifer Effect to manifest. Ordinary individuals shielded by screens and often swept up in mob mentality or perceived righteous indignation can engage in severe online harassment, public shaming, and targeted abuse. Platforms designed for connection can inadvertently amplify tribalism, us versus them, foster echo chambers where dissent is crushed, and incentivize performative outrage. This environment can lead to profound polarization and the dehumanization of those holding differing views. The public nature of online shaming intensifies its impact, inflicting potentially devastating psychological harm. Anonymity lowers inhibitions, allowing aggression to flourish with a diminished sense of real-world consequence. This perceived disconnect facilitates behavior many would not contemplate offline. Online mob justice often operates on incomplete information, fueled by sensationalism, leading to swift, disproportionate condemnation without due process, mirroring the arbitrary power dynamics seen in the experiment. The corporate corridor, when profit corrupts. The Lucifer Effect's influence isn't confined to prisons or online spaces. It permeates corporate environments where intense pressure for profit and advancement can eclipse ethical considerations. Highly competitive cultures may foster cutthroat ambition, normalizing or even rewarding unethical behavior if it serves the bottom line. The Enron scandal remains a potent case study. It wasn't merely the actions of a few rogue executives, but a systemic breakdown fueled by a culture prioritizing illusory success over integrity. Complex financial fraud was enabled by widespread complicity, silence, and the suppression of internal dissent. Employees who voiced concerns were often ignored or penalized, highlighting the immense pressure to conform, be a team player, within a corrupt system. Enron demonstrates how unchecked greed, coupled with moral disengagement and groupthink, can lead to catastrophic ethical failures, even within prestigious organizations. It serves as a stark reminder that no institution is inherently immune to the corrupting potential of power and situational pressures when ethical leadership, transparency, and accountability mechanisms fail. Forging resistance, individuality against the tide. While the Stanford experiment reveals our susceptibility to negative situational forces, it also implicitly highlights the path toward resistance. Countering the pull of conformity and the potential for cruelty requires conscious effort. This battle is often internal, waged through critical self-reflection and deliberate choices made under social pressure. Resistance involves cultivating the courage to voice dissent when group norms clash with personal values, navigating the tension between the need for belonging and the imperative of integrity. Asserting individuality becomes crucial. History shows that single individuals, acting with conviction, the power of one, can challenge harmful norms and inspire broader change. This doesn't always require grand acts of defiance. It can manifest in consistently making choices aligned with one's values, speaking truth even when uncomfortable, and setting an example of authenticity. Dissent, far from being disruptive, is vital for healthy groups and societies, acting as a check against groupthink and the tyranny of the majority. Defining and consciously adhering to one's core, sacred values provides a moral compass in ambiguous situations. Crucially, resistance requires the courage to say no, to draw firm lines against unacceptable behavior, refusing to compromise integrity even when facing authority or risking social disapproval. This act of setting boundaries is fundamental to personal agency and ethical resilience. The enduring shadow, vigilance in the face of the Lucifer Effect. Decades after its controversial conclusion, the Stanford Prison Experiment remains profoundly relevant. It serves as a persistent, unsettling mirror reflecting humanity's dual capacity for profound kindness and startling cruelty. Its core lesson, that situational forces can powerfully shape behavior, sometimes overriding deeply held values, is timeless. The Lucifer Effect is not confined to history or laboratory settings. It echoes in online interactions, corporate cultures, political polarization, and countless other domains of human interaction. In our increasingly complex and often fragmented world, understanding these dynamics is more critical than ever. The experiment challenges us to honestly confront our own potential for negative behavior under pressure, and underscores the necessity of continuous vigilance against the seductive allure of unaccountable power, the subtle creep of dehumanization, and the comfortable path of unthinking conformity. It is ultimately a call for heightened self-awareness and proactive engagement in fostering environments, both personal and societal, that promote empathy, critical thinking, accountability, and moral courage.